Hey, Pam Powell.
Hello, Chuck Kaplinski. We're actually in the same place at the same time.
And not only that are we in the same place at the same time, but we're in a moving vehicle.
We are, with me at the wheel.
Jesus, doing this podcast. So, we're always pressed for time. And we've always said it's always good when we're together. When we're doing it via Zoom, it loses some spontaneity. So, we're coming back from a movie together. We're recording in the car. Let's hope this doesn't take a tragic turn. But it will all be recorded if it does. So,
come on, you trust my driving more than that, don't you?
I have never felt unsafe.
Well, thank you.
With you behind the wheel. I really haven't. And I cannot say that about everyone.
True. I feel the same way when you are at the helm.
Yeah, because I think we're very similar drivers.
We are. I think I might have a little more patience than you, though.
It depends on the day. So, one of the reasons we're doing this kind of on the fly is that, we got a lot of movies to talk about. It's been feast or famine. And when it's feast, there's just a glut of things.
Right.
To talk about. But we're going to cover, 3 today? Is that what we decide? 3 or 4?
4, yeah. And then I want to talk about the special thing that you did yesterday.
Yeah, we'll get to that as well. So what do we want to start with?
I think we need to start with Inside Out 2, because that's what we just saw, and that's why we're driving back from Chicago.
It's very fresh in mind, very front of mind. And let's start with that. And I've got, some questions, some things I still haven't, I'm still thinking about, and it's always good to bounce that off of you. So.
All right. Well, I want to start this one just
Please
because
do. Yeah.
I loved Inside Out, the first one. I thought it was brilliant and clever. And the thing that really struck me is that neurologically and developmentally, it was spot on perfect. They actually understood how the brain works and the emotions and what happens inside your brain and long-term memory and short-term memory. Those were all beautifully choreographed and typified within this movie. And the same is true for Inside Out 2. We meet the young girl by the name of
Riley,
who is now 13 years old, and as we all know, I guess if you're over the age of 13, or if you've had a child, especially a girl who is 13, you understand that there is this horrible thing that happens, and it's called puberty, and it is no fun for anyone.
And I love how they introduced that.
I know, it's hilarious. We see the original 5 emotions. We've got fear, we've got disgust, we've got anger, sadness, and joy. And the control panel is led by Joy, voiced by
Amy Poehler.
And all of a sudden, there's at the beginning of an alarm going off, and it wakes them from a deep slumber. And all of a sudden, the alarms are ringing, and what's happening? Puberty is coming to town. And all hell breaks loose inside the mind of Riley with all these characters. Now we're introduced to, I believe, 5 more emotions. We've got anxiety, and now there's a battle between anxiety. Who's anxiety voiced by?
Maya Hawke.
And anxiety and joy are kind of at odds with one another. They each want to continue or to take over the control panel, and anxiety starts to win. But she's also accompanied by embarrassment, who is very briefly voiced by
Paul Walter Hauser.
And then we have Ennui,
who is voiced by Adèle Exarchopoulos.
Thank you,
yes.
Mr. Frenchman.
That's me.
And then we have Envy, voiced by
Ayo Edebiri from The Bear. And there was only 4 new emotions. Those 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. Hitting the brakes. So those 4 kind of take over after the demolition crew comes in and wreaks havoc on the brain. And then we've got the original 5 emotions being sent off to the vault. I don't want to spoil anymore, other than the fact that there is a sense of self and an understanding of self. And Riley is creating a new self as she and her besties go off to hockey camp. She is struggling with who she's supposed to be, who she wants to be, who others think she should be. And all of these emotions are at odds with one another. Joy and her cohorts need to figure out how they can retain the old sense of self of Riley, while Anxiety and her crew try to create a new Riley. I just think that this was, again, brilliantly done as they explore these emotions and what happens in your brain and how powerful things become, and then make it a very concrete way to understand what's happening not only inside of your own mind and thinking back in time, but also if you have kids, what might be going on with them. What a great movie to bring your tweens to and open up the door of conversation, and maybe they'll understand themselves a little better too. I loved it.
You were correct. There is a fifth emotion, but we only see her briefly, and that's nostalgia.
Oh, yes.
Who is told that she's come out a little bit too early, and they'll get to her in a few years. What an incredibly smart film. And you're right about the first one, and this one is too. I know the first one is used in schools extensively.
Oh, is it really?
Oh, yes, in science classes, for what you were talking about, but also in social emotional learning classes.
Okay.
And this one is destined for that as well, just as you said. I mean, it deals with the onset of the teen years just in a spot-on way. Pixar has had a rough patch, just like every studio does every once in a while, but this is among the best of them. They established a reputation of being smart and touching and just imaginative. And the great thing about those films is that, and this one too, it's not just for kids.
Right.
You were right. I as I'm watching this, I'm going through it myself as I'm doing this, and things that you used to do and things to, and why do I even still do?
I know, right?
The things that I do.
We don't totally grow up, I don't think. I'm still worried about what other people think and how they perceive me, and if I do this, and this, will they like me better? Will they appreciate my writing better, or whatever? It's like, come on, Pam, grow up.
But and that's, I think, one of the big points of the film is that we are these mixture of things.
Sure.
And the problem comes when one of them is dominant.
Right.
And, even Joy, when she is dominant, that's a problem.
Right.
Because you still have to look at things from a realistic point of view. So many cool things in this movie. And I know, like you, I don't want to ruin it, but I'm not really ruining it if I mention it because you're not seeing it. I mean, when you see the brainstorm that occurs, when you see
and the light bulbs,
the stream of consciousness that they have to go through. And I think my favorite part, and I think maybe yours too, was when sarcasm is introduced and the massive change it has
the chasm
on the physical nature of the personality was just brilliant.
I gotta tell you, it's one thing I thought of when that sarcasm came into play. I was at a friend's house, at Maureen's house yesterday. She's got all the puppies, and her granddaughter, who's turning 10 this next week, learned that I was going to go see Inside Out 2. She looked at me like, how do you get to do that? And Maureen was like, well, Pam gets to go see movies early. And I said, because I'm special. And Clara said to me, oh yeah, you're special.
So that change has occurred much earlier with her.
Right. Well, I think kids are growing up a little bit faster. And I looked at Maureen and I said, where does she get the sarcasm change? She goes, I don't know. So that one kind of hit home with me a little bit, but and all of it kind of hits home personally.
Yeah. Again, if you're a parent, it'll hit home. And you're right. If you're a kid, hopefully you're introspective enough to take this all in. And, again, I was applying myself to all this as well.
Yeah.
Despite your age, you're recognizing these things. And it took me to a dark place, too.
Yes.
It took me to a dark place.
It explores that darkness that we all have.
So here's my question. I mean,
Sure.
this film is visually vibrant, as the other one was, too. And the big problem with this is dealing with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
How would it look visually, or how would they represent, do you think, if an anti-anxiety med was introduced? Because that has become for better or ill, a solution to this
For kids?
for many teens.
Really?
Yes, anti-anxiety meds. So I couldn't help but think, visually,
interesting.
how would this make things look? And how would all the other things? I mean,
Be
would it
affected by
tamp
that?
down
Yeah.
the anxiety? How does it affect everything else too?
Do the memories become more gray as we saw them
Right.
represented? Yeah.
And every time you hear about a medication, all the side effects.
Yeah.
All the side effects. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't help but wonder, being a former boy, how this would be different if the subject were, in fact, a boy.
Right. I noticed something in the very beginning when puberty hit and she had a hard time getting out of bed to go to something that she really wanted to go for.
Right.
And she was irked at her parents and she screamed and then she cried and then she was like, she had 12 different emotions happen within 24 seconds, it felt like.
Right.
And I'm laughing because that's what I saw with my daughter, not so much my son.
I was going to say, the son's reaction is different.
He's just crabby.
They don't, yeah. And don't say anything.
No. And Kelsey would ride the roller coaster, and she'd grab me along for that ride, unwittingly and unwillingly. So, yeah, I think maybe a little different.
Well, and I hate to bring this up, but with a boy as well, we start thinking about sex.
Sure.
So I would love to see the Pixar personification of lust or whatever that is, and who would voice that character, and how does it interact with everything else?
Right.
It's
different.
And that's why these movies are so good, because it spurs my imagination, and it just gets you thinking.
Right.
And so many movies don't do that. Pixar is the gold standard, as far as these animated films are concerned.
Look at Toy Story.
Yeah, I mean, and when you see these other thrown off animated things just get thrown out there, it's like, really?
Yeah, nothing compares. It's a high bar.
What are we doing here? So, and I'm going to continue to think about this. I'm probably going to have more to say about it, but I mean, it's one of the best things I've seen this year.
Absolutely. Glad that it was worth the hour and 30-minute drive up, and who knows what it's going to be going home.
I think we're moving here. We're doing pretty well.
We're okay.
We're doing pretty well, but and I'm sure I'm going to be seeing it again.
Yeah.
So, really, really high marks for Inside Out 2.
What do you want to talk about next? We
got two weird ones to talk about, as my father-in-law would say.
All right.
That movie's weird.
Okay. All right, let's go with Tuesday then, because that movie's weird.
That movie is different.
It is.
Is that what we would say? It's a different film.
It is different. It is bizarre.
Challenging.
It's challenging. It's bizarre, yet it's captivating. To me.
It is, but it requires patience.
A lot of patience.
A great deal of patience. And we see Julia Louis-Dreyfus from Seinfeld in a completely different role here. Her name is Zora, and her teenage daughter, Tuesday, is dying. We're going to assume it's cancer or something, but she is fading away. And the key to enjoying this movie, or I would say appreciating the movie, is at the beginning it says that it's a mother-daughter fairy tale.
And I missed that.
Yeah, keep that in mind.
I needed to know that.
Keep that in mind, because some fantastical things occur. As we said, Tuesday is in the last stages. And one evening, a large macaw, a large bird, appears before her. And we have seen in a prologue that this bird is in fact deaf. We have seen the bird visit other people. Other people accept it. Other people fight it. The reaction is always different, but the end is always the same.
You can't fight death.
You can't fight death. And Tuesday recognizes what's going on, and she barters with death, which of course is something else that also many people do. And all she wants is a little bit more time to help her mother get prepared for what's going to happen, because she's perceptive enough to realize mom's not ready.
Right.
As if you could ever be ready.
Oh my God, to lose a child? No.
And Zora is not ready. She is not dealing with this. She leaves her daughter with a caretaker. While she's out and away, she no longer goes to work. It's unclear whether she got fired or quit, but she no longer works. They're running out of money. She does not take calls from her daughter while she's out. She's very much, it's the combination of denial and anger.
And some guilt there somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure why there's guilt. Those are some of the flaws with the movie that I would like to have had explored a little bit
And
more.
as I'm talking about this, I'm seeing how this is lining up with Inside Out, too, as far as all these conflicting emotions.
Sure.
But the daughter is able to convince this bird to allow them to have a little bit more time in order for her to come to terms with this. And Zora eventually sees the bird as well. And their relationship, or what happens with them, of course, is the formation of really the crux of the film, I think. You've really got to make an adjustment with this one as far as how you perceive it. The movie moves slowly. The movie has tangents that I did not like. I understand what the point of the film is.
Right.
And I appreciate that.
I didn't understand the point of the film until close to the very end.
Right, but in the end, it's like, okay, I understand what we're doing, and this is a vital message. There's no question.
Sure.
This is a vital message. We're all going down that route at some point or another on both sides of the equation. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she's great in film. I mean,
she's amazing.
Absolutely heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. I wish it had been a bit more streamlined, a bit more straightforward. And I don't know who did the special effects, but that bird is fantastic. Sometimes it can grow to being incredibly small. Sometimes it grows to be over 10 feet tall, and it's all based on the reaction of the person it's dealing with. The effect was captivating to me. I just wish the film was maybe about 20 minutes shorter and a little bit more direct.
I wish that they would have explored their past a little bit more in some way. I would like to have known.
That's good, because, where's Dad?
Yeah, where is Dad? Why are they in England? Because the daughter has a British accent, the caretaker has a British accent, and obviously Julia Louis-Dreyfus does not. And thank you, Julia, for not trying to have a British accent.
Right, yeah.
And then why does she feel guilty? Because there's a sense of guilt there, and she got the house from her mother. What happened to her mother, and why are they there? I needed a little bit more meat of a backstory.
And she's selling things in order for them to pay for
the
I mean, they're in dire straits.
Yes. So I'm on the fence as far as recommending this one.
Me
just
too.
Because it does require a lot of patience, and it is very bizarre. Yet it stuck with me longer than I thought it would. I struggled. I'm going to admit it. I struggled watching this. I texted you a couple times and said, I'm struggling. But I'm glad I persevered. I did like the message at the end. It was a beautiful message, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus was amazing in this role. And the young girl, I don't remember who played Tuesday.
Yeah, she's heartbreaking as well. Her name is Lola Pettigrew.
Thank you for saying that.
English actress, yes.
I am driving, so I don't want to look up names. So we're being safe on the road here. It's if you want to explore some pretty heavy topics, go for it. It let me down a little bit because it didn't have enough meat to the backstory. I needed that.
But it's going to prompt a lot of discussion.
It does, yeah.
And you're right. It hasn't left me either. So, you can't say that about a lot of movies anymore.
Very true. Very, very, very true.
All right, so let's go with one that you liked, I think, more than I did.
Okay. Treasure? Okay, so this is Lena Dunham, and I'm not
Pam Powell's favorite actress.
I'm not going to make any bones about it. She is not my favorite actress. I did not like Girls. I did not like her in Girls. Adam Driver was in Girls too, wasn't he?
Yes.
Didn't like him in that either. So I just didn't like it.
There were not a lot of likable people in that show.
Okay.
Which I think was the point. But
Probably
no.
was, but whatever, it didn't appeal to me. I didn't watch it. And Chuck doesn't like Lena Dunham either. And she adapted this screenplay from a book by, and again, I'm not going to look anything up. We're in the car, Chuck.
Lily Brett, which is and it's based on a true story.
Based on a true story. This is 91?
1991, they said, yeah.
And Lena Dunham's character's name is?
Ruth.
And Ruth is going to go to Poland, and she is going to basically research her history. Her mother has passed away, and her father is older, and they were both in concentration camps during World War II. And she wants to go back and find out a little bit more about where she came from. She hasn't gotten a lot of information from either of her parents now that her mother is gone, and her father just is kind of this jovial jokester and doesn't really want to talk about the past. So turns out he joins her on this trip to Poland, and she really doesn't want him to go.
And his name is Edek, played by Stephen Fry.
Thank you. He is the highlight of this movie.
No doubt.
And, you know, they tout this as a comedy. It is not. It is not. There are some ironic situations that occur. Not once did I chuckle or laugh out loud or even giggle. So this is not a comedy. This is an exploration of a father-daughter relationship, or as he calls it, a daughter-father trip.
Yes.
He's got some language issues which are cute. That's probably the cutest part of it, is his language and interpretation. And he has long buried the past for a lot of good reasons. And together, as they go to his former childhood home and meet the people of this area and go to the concentration camp and the train tracks that he rode on the train to get dumped off at this concentration camp along with the woman that would become his wife. It's heartbreaking. And Ruth finally kind of wakes up a little bit to understand her father better through his actions and reactions. And then he also starts to understand the importance of passing down this trauma, these tragedies, and it's a part of who she is, and she needs to know that. I appreciated this movie for what it was. I appreciated the fact that it was based on a true story, and Stephen Fry,
yes,
was remarkable in this role. Another just engaging performance. Lena Dunham was fine, but I needed more from her. I needed more action and reaction from her because there was a lot of emotion going on. And I think that who directed this?
I don't know. Let me look it up. Julia von Heinz.
Okay.
Julia von Heinz has done much TV, and this is her first feature film.
Okay. I think that the role of Ruth needed someone who has more ability to pull together subtle acting, expressions, reactions, body language, facial expressions to convey messages. You know, just there are some people that you know with just a twitch of an eye exactly what they're thinking and feeling. Subtlety, I don't think, is Lena Dunham's sword. I don't think she has that in her to convey the depth of meaning that this character needed. So I am recommending this film because I think it's an interesting part of history, and I love father-daughter relationship movies. I think they're not explored as much as they should be or could be, and I think that's the most difficult relationship is a father and a daughter relationship. So I'm going to recommend this one, but I think it's got flaws to it.
Yeah. My biggest problem, I think, was that Ruth is, for most of the film, a one-note character.
Yes.
And that gives us a one-note performance.
Yes.
And she's not a pleasant person.
No.
And I do not want to spend any more time with this woman. For a woman who apparently is a writer.
Right.
For a New York newspaper. I don't know if it was New York Times or whatever. She's really not that bright at times. So I had big problems with that. Love the guy. I love Fry, of course, as you said. He was great. But a heartbreaking film as well.
Oh my gosh,
this man has just been pushing this aside his entire life. Doesn't want to deal with this.
He's got to confront his own demons.
Right.
You know?
And you know, there's a heartbreaking moment where they find some things that belong to his parents, and you know, it's a huge wake-up call. But you're right, this is not a comedy, And I think it's very disingenuous that they're trying to promote this as such. So I'm glad you gave that, caveat at the beginning, because I think that's important.
Right.
But, yeah, I'm on the fence about it. I mean, I wouldn't pay full freight, but, maybe when it's streaming.
Yes. And that's playing in theaters beginning Friday, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so that's 3 movies down. 1 to go.
Ghostlight. Oh my God, I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you want to hold off till next week?
That's fine, because I don't know when it's actually going to get to people. But this is a movie that I want to make sure that we come back to when it is available at home. This is the type of movie that's not going to get a wide theatrical release, and that's important. Unfortunate. Because it's one of the best things I've seen this year. And it's a movie that should not work. The setup, the premise is absolutely at times ridiculous. And yet it does work.
Somehow it pieces together perfectly.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah, but I mean, when I describe the plot and everything, people are going to say, okay, that sounds absolutely stupid. But believe me, it's done with such sincerity.
And finesse.
Oh, there's a lot of finesse there, and
right?
such heart that you just get sucked into it, and I certainly did. It was shot in the Chicago area. Waukegan, Highland Park, a couple other areas. So if you're from the Chicago area, you're going to recognize a lot of this. The main actor is a guy named Keith Kuferer. I looked up his filmography after this. He's been in Chicago area productions, always bit roles. He is incredible in this movie. One of the most moving performances I've seen this year. And it's one that simmers and simmers and simmers until finally that can't happen anymore. He plays Dan. He's a construction worker, and we can tell from the beginning he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. And we don't know why.
No, we don't.
We don't know why for a long time. Why? What's bothering him. His wife is Sharon, and their daughter is Daisy, played by Catherine Malin Kuferer. So we have a real life father-daughter acting team playing father-daughter in this film.
And they're beautiful together.
Yeah, and Daisy is a pistol.
Daisy, that's an understatement.
And Daisy really is awful. She's awful. She's the type of kid that you'd want to kill. She's acting out at school, disrespectful, just not listening to anyone, cussing, just openly defiant.
But people are cutting her slack for some reason.
Right.
We don't know why.
Yeah, there's something, it becomes clear it's not just something that's bothering him, but something is weighing on the whole family. And circumstances occur, and that's all I'm going to say. Circumstances occur in which our hero Dan finds himself in a community production of Romeo and Juliet,
Okay.
playing Romeo.
I'm going to stop you there for just a second, because I need to go back and watch the movie again, because in my mind, at the end, I'm like, how did that happen? How did this construction worker meet, I can't remember her name.
Oh, the actress?
Yeah.
Right. Rita. Well, remember, they're doing construction work outside the building where the theater is.
Right.
And they're loud, and she comes out and complains.
Right.
And says, we can't get any work done.
Can you be quiet just for a little bit?
And they're working on this same piece of road for a few days, and suddenly she comes out and says, come here, I need you.
Oh, okay.
And just ropes him in. And this is a threadbare theater company that takes anyone who can walk, talk, and maybe read and throws them in parts. They're that desperate for roles, to the point to where this old guy in his 50s is playing Romeo, and Rita, who is in her 50s as well, is Juliet. Again, as I'm talking about this makes no sense at all. I understand that. But there's a whole reason for this. We eventually find out what is weighing on these people, and it is the worst of tragedies has occurred. And I'm not sure whether I should actually say anything, because part of the power of the film is that you're asking questions, and then when we find out what it is, it's like, oh my God. But what's interesting is that through being in this play, Dan is able to come to terms with emotions of other people that he doesn't understand. But more importantly, he's able to come to terms with this horrific situation that has descended upon them. This movie is done so subtly.
Right?
It's a stealth film, man. I mean, and
smart.
So smart. And it's all credit to Kelly. I'm not going to say all credit, but no. Kelly O'Sullivan is the writer and director. Again, like you say, a smart script, but also the performances are so, I don't want to say low key, but they're very human.
Yeah.
They're real. You know, you're sucked in immediately. You're wondering, okay, what's going on here? God, I feel bad for these people. I don't even know what's going on with them, but you have a sympathy and an empathy for them almost immediately. And again, when you find out what happens, it's a
gut punch.
It is a gut punch. And the catharsis that comes through, and that's really one of the messages of the film, how art helps us, how, you know, we need art for a variety of reasons, but one of them is to help us understand things that perhaps we don't understand, help us deal with things we don't want to deal with, and that's one of the reasons it's so vital.
And also to have empathy and understanding from another's perspective, and then additionally how healing it can be. And you know, we talked about Hard Miles last week, and how healing nature can be, and how you confront those demons in your life and really analyze where you're at to allow yourself to face what's happened in your life. And I think the same thing is true with what Dan went through and becoming Romeo and seeing what happened, the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. And
but as you had pointed out, the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet, but seeing it from the perspective of a 50-year-old man.
Right. It's
different. It's a completely different thing. Gosh, I love this film.
I did too.
Ghostlight is the name of it. Again, I fear it's only going to be in a handful of theaters. But really seek it out. And we're gonna circle back to this one. I think once it pops up on video on demand at home or one of the streaming services. I have a feeling I'm going to be talking about this one at the end of the year.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I thought hopefully it'll pop back up on video on demand around September, October, when other quote unquote big movies are coming out, to try and sway us to vote for them for Best Picture. So
yeah, well, I tell you,
a good one.
Best performance, the best lead male performance I've seen this year. I thought he was incredible.
Best ensemble cast.
Yeah. Oh, they were all great.
Right?
Yeah. Once we get into the whole cast of Romeo and Juliet is they're quite an interesting group.
But I mean, they perfectly represent. I don't know if you did plays when you were. Okay, I did too. And you know, we're kind of a weird, quirky group of people.
Yep.
And it's an awesome thing.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So make sure you check Ghostlight out if you're in Chicago. I'm guessing it's opening downtown Chicago. I hope.
Yeah.
And probably some other major cities, but we will definitely keep you apprised.
And I think it's going to be at the Music Box in Chicago.
Is it?
Where it was part of the Chicago Film Critics Film Festival a couple of weeks ago. So, hey, if you're in Chicago and you've never been to the Music Box, get there.
Oh, it's a great
theater. It is 95 years old.
They just redid the main theater, didn't they?
No. They're going to shut down in August.
Oh, okay.
For about 3 or 4 weeks, and then they're going to do that renovation.
Okay,
so,
gotcha.
Yeah, get there, and it's a perfect film to see there.
It is. Now, I think we can let the cat out of the bag.
Okay.
Because you had something super exciting that happened this week. I'm just going to leave it at that, and you take it away.
Yes, I was fortunate enough to interview Kevin Costner. Yesterday, yes. I delivered his message to you, by the way, Pam.
Oh, yeah?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, what did he say?
I've been waiting to hear that.
Oh,
That's
my
what
God.
He said.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. He doesn't have just one new movie coming out. He's got 2 new movies coming out this year. And he's filming a 3rd and hopefully a 4th, all of a series for one story called Horizon. And that comes out June 28th. We'll be talking more about that as we get closer to that release date. And of course, we'll be keeping you aware of when to see this interview. Gracious man, worried about him. He looked exhausted because I know he's been on a relentless press tour for this. And obviously so. He spent $100 million of his own dollars to produce these 2 movies and invest in the other 2 that are going to come. So it's a big swing. it's a big swing, and it was just a great privilege to talk to him. Yeah, like I say, he's just very forthcoming on things, very enthusiastic about the film, and I could tell it meant a lot to him.
Well, if you're going to invest $100 million into something, it better mean something.
It better. It better.
And I understand that it was filmed all over Utah, which everyone who has listened to the podcast knows that Utah is a very special state to me. I go there as often as I possibly can because it is beautiful.
Well, hopefully the Utah Tourism Board uses the film in their promotion of the state, because he's all over there. We're in the mountains, we're in the desert, we're out on the plains. There's very familiar locations as far as Monument Valley is concerned, if you've watched Westerns at all. And the movie is, without a doubt, stunning. And because of that and many other reasons, you need to see it in a theater. It's one of those big films that the TV is not going to cut it, no matter how big your TV is.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I am looking forward to seeing that, if for nothing else. I have to tell you, you have opened my eyes to Westerns because you gave a talk at the local library about the history of Westerns, and that really made me appreciate them so much more.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you for doing that. And I think that pretty much wraps it up for this podcast for Real Talk with Chuck and Pam. Make sure you follow us if you don't already. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to our website. We don't overload you with anything because we're too busy to do that, to be honest with you, and I don't like that, so I'm not going to do that to you either, and I don't know how.
Yes, and please tell your friends, get us as many followers as you can. We would appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. Real Talk with ChuckandPam.com. That's REEL, talkwithchuckandpam.com.